Good. Well then, guys, we are on perfect schedule, which has never happened to me before in my life. It's 20:03, and we're on to third and final part of the presentation. Predators in Uplands. Ping. Sorry, guys, I'm losing my voice and have to drink something. Cold tea. Right, predators in Uplands. So for those of you who know Sweden, you know Uplands County. Right in the middle we have Uppsala, and we go down to Knivsta, so we're north of Stockholm, south of Gävle. And we're going to be talking about the predators here. So who's here? How many are there? And what are they doing here? Well, who's not here? First, these two. The Arctic fox and the wolverine are not present in Uplands. They don't live in the right habitats. They prefer other places. They both like mountains. I said I saw a wolverine earlier. I was actually up watching Arctic foxes on the mountain. So they live in the same place, and it's not here. But bears. Back to our big old friendly teddy bear. Bears in Uplands. Now, bears have huge ranges. Males will cover a massive distance in a day. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but, you know, thousands of kilometers square area for a territory. But in Uplands, we have roughly 2 to 3 bears. Again, records haven't been produced since autumn because they started hibernating. But before that, we know there was a number of sightings. The closest we got to a bear in Uplands last year was a couple sightings just north of Gävle, which were the 2 bears who were shot in August 2020. So around 2 to 3 bears maximum in Uplands. Lynx. Back to the cute cuddly cat. I mentioned earlier that when they do the inventory, they tend to count things in family groups. And family groups, the number of individuals in a family group makes it a little more complicated to work out. Like, it's not consistent between each county. So in Uppsala land, we have 8.5 family groups. Now, we think family groups means about 5.5 species. So you can kind of do some quick maths there to work out. We've got somewhere in the region of 40 to 50 lynx in Uppsala land. But in Uplands County, so the bigger area, we up that to 10 family groups. And within Uppsala land, they seem to make a nice donut shape perfectly around Uppsala land, but avoiding the middle. There just seems to be this gap in the middle where Uppsala is, obviously, and then a ring of them around. So for those who are interested in tracking lynx in Uppsala, or around Uppsala, we are running out of time with the snow, but I will be coming onto some groups who do some interesting stuff and do tracking tours, myself included. So, the wolf. Now, the wolf is the more complicated story of Uplands, and I put this one in here last so that I had a bit of time to talk about it. 1.5 family groups 2020 winter. So that's winter last year. Not now, last year. We know the number has changed because we've been out this year. We started to look at the most recent data. 1.5 family groups, i.e. 1.5 packs. Sometimes it gets complicated because a pack is shared between 2 counties because it's over a border. But we had 2 distinct packs and an extra area. So Florida Nature Reserve, which I still can't pronounce, Florida Nature Reserve, in the north of Uplands, that had a female wolf running around it, Nature Reserve. Then we had the Glamson pack, and then we had the Sigfauna pack. So those are the 2 distinct packs, Glamson and Sigfauna, and that's who we're going to be talking about today. I will very quickly point out this number is now down to 1 family group in Uplands, which is the minimal viable number which we should have in the county. We don't have a ceiling, we don't have a maximum number that we should have here, though of course there is probably going to be balance and control, but we are now at the minimum number to support the ecosystem in this county. But let's get complicated, let's get technical. Hopefully you can see this image clearly. Now I'm going to be looking at my laptop so I can make sure I say the right things. You guys look at this. So this is a family tree of the Glamson pack. It's a little bit complicated, and the way this is done is when we go out wolf tracking, we find scat, we take the scat and we do a genetic analysis on it to see whose it is. And we pretty much have a genetic identification code for almost every wolf in Sweden and Norway. So we're doing pretty good on the science, but that's because there's not so many of them. It's kind of a blessing and a curse. But I digress. Let's look at this. Up in the top, we have original mum and dad. And then in 2015-16, mum and dad had a load of babies. You know, they've got the 8 babies that they got there. And underneath each of them, you know, Fud is born, and then Avlivad is basically ended or stopped existing, died. And then on the babies, Senasti is like last seen. So you can kind of work out when and where we last saw different individuals. So like on the babies list, Honna G8817 was seen, Horfors, that's further south than here, but it was seen this year, I think, if I got the name right. Anyway, the reason this one got complicated, you'll see very clearly, is the line on the left-hand side of the screen. Yes. Dad had some babies with his daughter. Twice. So he had 6 cubs in 2017 and 2 more in 2018-19 with his daughter. Sorry, let me just read this again. Yes, mum and son. Sorry, mother and son, not father and daughter. Mother and son. My apologies. Thank you, Danny. So mother and son had these 8 cubs over a 2-year period. The reason this is complicated, and I mentioned earlier, habitat loss and habitat fragmentation. If there aren't enough wolves in an area, who do the wolves breed with? Comes down to the obvious question. The point of an animal, of life for animals, is survive or die, breed or die. Yeah, it's very simple. You survive and you breed. So if there's not enough animals, who do you breed with? Well, you breed with the ones present and available. So mum and son. This is not uncommon in Sweden. Genetic inbreeding is incredibly common in the very fractured and broken wolf populations we have in Sweden. This pack is also now disbanded. It is basically gone. We don't know where they are. You know, you see the first bunch of cubs have all run off all over the world, all over the country. The second lot, there's a couple of them still knocking around Glamson. One of them seen last year, one of them seen this year, but we've not seen them in a while. So that pack, we've done some tracking there. We might have seen 1 or 2 pairs of tracks, but it is not the pack it used to be. It might just be a couple of adults, a couple of cubs. There's only a few individuals there. So that is rather a sad story, because that was at one point a really strong, really intense pack in a really good position in Sweden. It had a really nice large territory area, beautiful area to explore, but it's now disbanded. And I believe there's been some control work done because of this genetic inbreeding, because we've got to try and control the risk, but we're also not fixing it by introducing new ones. So that's a very complicated topic to get into. So I apologize for the sad story, but I know I bring you to a happy story. And this is the new pack, Sigifora. So happy about these guys. They are so wonderful. So, for one, the lines are only going down. There's no lines going across. There is no inbreeding. And you also have 2 very colourful wolves. We have the purple wolves. These purple wolves are not Swedish. These purple wolves have come from the Russian-Finnish population, and they have managed to sneak across into Sweden and then run south to us. So thankfully, this pack and these cubs at the bottom, 16517 and 2419, are very important genetically, because they are some of the most genetically diverse wolves in the entirety of Sweden. So yay, we have a really exciting pack, and these guys we've been tracking this winter, and we're looking at it. We know they've got at least 4 cubs, which should be dispersing soon, and hopefully some of them might feed back up into the Glamson area, and then kind of rebolster that population. or go elsewhere. So at least 4 cubs who will be disbanding and moving on to create new populations around this central part of Sweden this year. Very exciting. So those were the sad, the bad, and the happy noises about the large predators in Uplands, how many there are, and kind of what's going on with them. An honourable mention. Otters. I like mustelids. I like otters. I bring this up very specifically because I am sat in Biotopia right now. We are really close to the River Frisan in the middle of Uppsala. If you go to somewhere like Café Rummet in Uppsala and you look at the river, you'll see the ice and the snow and you'll see otter tracks, which is really cool. Like right in the middle of the city, otter tracks where you can't miss them. And I've had some good conversations down there. I've been stood by the river just talking to people walking past. Tracking is a great thing to get into. It's a great hobby. It doesn't cost you much money. All you really need is one of these extending ruler jobbies and a good book, which Revierförening, the top item there, they have a new tracking guide for Sweden. Some changes to make to part 2, just a few new species to include, but I promised I would talk about tracking and organizations and who's involved. For the reference, the picture at the far right side is a wolf track from the Sigifauna group. So you now know who that is and what they are. Tracking and organizations. So, first of all, we have your Revierförening, the Carnivore Association or the Predator Association. These are the guys who, all over Sweden, they love and care for and want to understand predators. We now have a new group. I'm going to call it RCG, or the Revierförening Cubs Group. There's the full Swedish name of it there, second on the list. There. Which is the student body of Revierförening, which we've just set up here in Uppsala, in Uplands, where we're hoping to do some networking, some educating, some tracking events, some tours, and maybe go further afield, meet some of the predators of the other parts of Sweden. In terms of research, SLU University is probably one of the best research facilities for carnivores, carnivore-human interactions. There's a lot of research on the anthropogenic effect of humans on carnivores at the moment and on the effects on agriculture. Scandalv, which I've put there, is a very particular project run looking at wolf-human interactions, which is a hope of mine that I can kind of weasel my way into at some point, pun intended. And then finally at the bottom I put myself, because that is exactly what I'm starting to do. We are running out of snow this winter, but just because we don't have snow doesn't mean we can't go out and enjoy and hopefully find predators. You know, certain things, the lynx is more difficult to find. But these are the various organizations, and of course this is not an extensive list. There are loads of options of where to go. But these are a good few places you can start with, talk to. I want to go and find so-and-so, where can I look? Kind of questions. And we're at 2017, so I'm 3 minutes ahead of schedule. That was fun. Questions, ladies and gentlemen. Danny.
All right. So we have several questions lined up here.
Excellent.
First one here, actually posed in Swedish. I'll read it in Swedish and then I'll say it in English as well. Marlene Fugelsang. Tack för intressant föreläsning. Spårade varg i februari i Östergötland i vargreviret Långbogen och fann lodjursspår. Är det vanligt att lodjur lever i samma område som en familjegrupp med vargar? So basically, Marlene has tracked wolves in February in the region of Östergötland, in a wolf territory called Långbogen, and found lynx tracks. So is it normal or common that lynx live in the same area as a family group of wolves?
A great question. Absolutely fantastic. So do lynx and wolves cohabitat the same sort of area? Well, they like the same sort of habitat. They both like these forests and they both like prey. Now, I didn't mention earlier, actually, I don't think, what the lynx eats. The lynx likes to eat roe deer. It's a relatively big animal, especially compared to the lynx, and they they ambush it, basically. They fall out of trees onto the roe deer and catch it. And that is the preferred prey of the lynx. The wolf also like roe deer. The wolf can take down a moose, but they kind of need a half-decent sized pack to do so. So in terms of, do they live in the same area? Absolutely they can. Do they live in the same area and work together? Probably not. The wolf will take bigger prey, the lynx will take smaller prey, and there might be some scavenging in between the groups, in which case there's a level of competition. But if the prey density and the prey abundance is high enough, no questions that there'll be a whole mix of predators in the area. So, absolutely. And that's why, of course, the fox follows both the lynx and the wolf, trying to look for food. So predators do kind of mash together occasionally.
And we have another question from Sophie Bygden. Why isn't there any program about the breeding of wolves, introducing new individuals and so on? Why isn't there a breeding program for wolves?
Sure. So, breeding programs for wolves, and I don't want to speak out of turn here. I will confess that it's not something I am totally researched up on. There has been talk occasionally of trying to bring wolves over from the Russian Finnish population. There are complications with that, and it's almost better to let them come over naturally and try to kind of create the corridor and the pathway that they can make it safely from the east down to the south. The wolves don't tend to live in the north of Sweden anymore due to the high level of conflict with the reindeer herders up in that area. So trying to get from Finland across to Sweden is difficult. It's also very expensive. Conservation breeding is an incredibly expensive method to try. And there is the risk that you can start developing species with the wrong behaviors, the wrong traits. So it's a very complicated thing to get right as well. As well as being expensive, it's complicated. And the wolf being so close to the dog, being so popular, genetically, conservation breeding is a great way to go. Behaviorally and in terms of an ecosystem and the puzzle piece that fits into that ecosystem is a very complicated matter. So I'm sure it's something that people are considering or looking at or trying, but it's not something I'm fully read up on. So I'll confess that that's as much as I can give on that one.
All right, I think we're out of questions, but what is the status for wolves internationally? Because in Sweden and internationally they have a different classification on red list.
Of course, yes. Well, there are many different subspecies of the grey wolf and many different species of wolf. Internationally, yes, the wolf seems to go through this cyclic pattern. It seems to crash out at some point, everyone gets scared, and then they pick it back up, and then everyone gets scared, and they crash it back down. And it seems to happen almost world over. You know, the Americas, very big example of the case, and the landscape of fear was a term that came out of a wolf study and a wolf reintroduction program in Yellowstone. So that landscape of fear was the wording from that. But now they're getting to the point where they're thinking, okay, there's too many wolves, so they're going to have to start controlling. So yes, the populations are different, and Sweden is kind of isolated from the rest of the world and the rest of the wolf populations, with this barrier in the north, and obviously Denmark as well. It's quite a small little bridge for them to get over. But the populations, they fluctuate all over the world. So Sweden is currently quite low, America is quite high. I'm sure it's going to change at some point. I hope Sweden's wolves get better. Hold my thumbs. Good. Is that questions? Cool. Can you throw the presentation up one more? Oh.
Katarina Leite.
Yeah.
Do you have any interesting animal encounter stories?
Any interesting animal encounter stories? Well, if you quickly put the presentation back up a second, Danny, I'm going to show a picture. And this picture everybody has seen, hopefully, because you might have found it on Facebook, and if you're not, I've put it on all of my social medias, and this is the thank you slide I was meant to be showing at the end of the questions. This particular individual, this young female 6-week-old Arctic fox, is a gem, and I'm never going to forget her. We were doing a study where we're collecting them, taking measurements and everything, and the guy I was with asked if I wanted a photo. I said, of course I want a photo. So, you know, I got the fox, and lovely, great. And I looked at him and he went, is it good? And I dropped the fox almost onto my lap, and she gave me a nice little cut. I'm not going to show you, just a little mark right behind the watch. Thankfully I wasn't wearing the watch. So that's probably the best interaction story I have with a predator. I will take this opportunity, actually. I know why Kat asked this question. Predators, we've been talking about them today, and this is going to be a good note to finish on. Predators have a behavioral trait to hunt things. It's in their nature. That's how they survive. The lynx, I didn't mention earlier, is an obligate carnivore. It must eat meat. The wolf, the bear, the wolverine, they're all omnivores, but they mostly eat meat, except the bear, which is balanced. So they hunt, which therefore makes them scary. And we have children's stories. We have the story of the big bad wolf and the 3 little pigs. We have the story of Red Riding Hood and the big bad wolf. But they're not intrinsically dangerous. Predators aren't a risk to us. Certainly not in the numbers that they're in now. If you do something stupid, if you get between a mother bear and her cub, yeah, she's a risk to you. If you get too close to fox cubs, yeah, they're a risk to you. But it's an understanding. We've got to kind of understand them and understand how we act around them. The reason I bring this up, predators aren't dangerous. The only time I have almost thought I was going to die at the hands of an animal was with a moose. I was almost stamped on by a moose in the mountain. It wasn't many days after this photo was taken. I was up on the mountain. I will tell this story very quickly, and then I'll say my thank yous and goodbye. I was up on the mountain. It's the land of the midnight sun, but the clouds have come over, so it's dark. It's raining, and the rain is driving sideways like bullets of ice. And I find a big rock, and I hide behind this rock, hiding from the rain because it's pelting and it's hurting and it's hurting. Why? Because I'm watching some foxes who are quite happy playing in the rain. Yeah, they're warm, they've got their nice fluffy coats on. It's raining, so there's no mosquitoes. I'm watching foxes. They're happy. Great. I'm 500 meters away from the foxes. I'm 500 meters away from my tent, which is behind me. And I'm crouched there behind this rock, and I hear a snap behind me, closer than this curtain is behind me now. And the first thought through my mind is, oh, please don't be a wolverine. Do not be a wolverine. Don't be a wolverine, for having seen a wolverine not 3-4 days earlier. And I turn around, and it's a moose. It's a young bull moose who has left his family and come up on the mountain to have his bachelor party, because that's what moose do. They come up on the mountain to have a party. Great. I'm now looking at a moose. I'm sat on the floor and this thing's towering over me because they're tall, they're big. Problem was, he didn't know I was there. He didn't know I was next to that rock. He was trying to get behind the rock because of the rain. I'm dressed in green because I'm an outdoorsman and I'm silly like that. So to me, a moose has crept up on me. To him, the earth has just moved in front of him. His front arms go up. Moose don't use their antlers to fight. They use it to fight each other, and they use it on trees. When they want to protect themselves from a predator, particularly something that's on the floor, they raise their front legs, they take their sharp cloven hooves, and they stamp into the ground. Fast and hard. And he did so right where my ass was on the floor. Thankfully, I can move. I managed to get behind the rock and get forward and out of the way. I wasn't watching behind me. I wasn't aware of my environment, and a herbivore crept up on me. It's the only time I thought I was at serious risk of harm from an animal. And I've been lynx tracking, I've been bear tracking, I've worked with Arctic foxes. No animal is inherently a risk to anyone unless you mess up. Or unless someone messes up in your vicinity. Because they'll just react. So that is, I think, where I'm going to leave it. Do we have any very last minute questions, or can I do the thank you?
Well, we have one question, but I think it's of the type that we will not be able to answer here.
Okay.
Marlene Fugelsang, I think that question has to be directed to policy makers, not to us.
No, policy is a bit outside my game. All right, then, ladies and gentlemen. Slide, please, Danny. What did I drop? Oh, it's fine. Just the chair breaking. Made it an hour and a half. Right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and every single one of you for coming and joining us today for the Predators of Sweden. I hope this was entertaining. I'm sorry that I managed to lose my voice very quickly from the beginning. I hope it wasn't too disturbing. Of course, further questions, comments, or anything that you want to talk about, if you want to talk to me, there's my email address, there's a website, and my social medias. But I wanted to say, first and foremost, the biggest thank you to Danny and to Biotopia. Danny is the wrong side of the camera right now. Maybe he'll come over here, or maybe he'll say hello. Oh. Right.
Hey guys.
Yeah, take a chair, take a chair.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for watching, and this whole event will be available to watch at any time, at your leisure. You just use this link. It'll keep working forever, hopefully.
Absolutely. Yep. It'll be everywhere. Thank you, Danny.
Get out and find some predators, guys.
Absolutely. It's a good time of life. It's a good time of year. I know the pandemic's made everyone sit inside, but the nature's always open. Get outside, guys. Thank you again for coming. Stay safe. Stay wild. Have a good evening. Thank you.